What is up, martial arts fanatics? Welcome back. As always, I'm Coach Greg. Today we're doing the system breakdown based on your votes of Beneil Dairush. And I'm excited to do this breakdown anyway. I'd wanted to do it for a while. Really an excellent case study. And more importantly, when you talk about systems, he is a great example of a guy who has a very clear-cut process of what he wants to achieve and the way he wants to achieve it in order. It's a very clear-cut system. And it's no surprise. He's a very methodical mind, and he trains at the right camp under Rafael Cordeiro, who, man, King's MMA is obviously about as good as you can get. They brought out guys like, they've trained guys like Anderson Silva, Wanderlei Silva, Shogun Hua, of course, Beneil Dairush, all sorts of really high-end guys. I mean, Cordeiro's trained Mike Tyson, like you name it, like the best of the best. What a fantastic camp to come from. And he himself, Beneil Dairush, got his black belt within 5 years in jiu-jitsu. He is a black belt in Muay Thai under Rafael Cordeiro. But he also was a jiu-jitsu champion at Worlds at blue, purple, and brown. This guy is amazing, right? He is a very, very high-end grappler. And he did the right thing by finding a good Muay Thai instructor to really show him the right way to strike to set up his jiu-jitsu game. And it really showcases what you can do with the right game plan and the right system and how far you can go in it. So he's going to be a great case study to break down today. As always, I do want to remind you the Nemean fight system is still available on Paperbook on Amazon. You can get it there today. And please make sure for future system breakdowns to go to the website and cast your vote. I'm going to start doing these based purely on who gets the most votes each month, or overall votes. So please go on there and cast your votes today. Okay, so let's start by talking about Beneil Dairush's striking. And this is a really important part of his game so that he can get to the place where he can use his takedowns and his clinches successfully. And there's a lot of things that he does that are really, really well done. A lot of things you're going to see that are similarities to things we talked about in the Nemean fight system. So, for example, he does fight from a southpaw stance because we talked about most fighters who are orthodox. With my feet at the same distance to their lead foot, it puts me further back from my opponent. That further back means that not only does it open up this rear leg body kick to the liver, but it does also give him more of a response time in case they try to strike him or shoot on him. And we're going to talk about how that ties in with his pulls in a little bit, because most of his defense is based on the idea of staying in the outside range and using a pull. And he does have some tactics that he does if they start to overwhelm him. We'll get to that in a little bit. But from the outside, the majority of what he's going to do is stay to the outside, work outside foot position, throw a jab, and pull. The jab is one of his best weapons, and he consistently goes back to it over and over and over again because he can consistently land it and not get hit back. One of the things that I think people don't give him enough credit for is how good his jab and pull is, because it makes him create a situation where he can keep the fight in an opportunism range, which is that outside range, where I can hit him, but he cannot easily access me. And this is something we talked about in the Nemean fight system, again, using the outside jab. And Beneil Dairush is fantastic at it. He comes in, hits a jab and pulls, and he gets clear, especially when he adds footwork to it, so that by the time they respond back, he's already well clear. This is going to help play into his counters. We'll talk about that in a little while. It's going to set them up for some counters. It's also going to set him up for some offensive opportunities, because as he comes in here, now it starts giving him opportunities to build off of it. One of the things that you'll see him do a lot is the dropping cross, where he drops his head off the line. It's not an overhand, right? It is a cross where he throws the jab and he starts putting his head to the outside as he punches through. This keeps his head very safe on his entry. Once again, now he has two different strikes that he can use that they cannot easily access him. He hits the jab and he pulls and they can't get to him, or he hits the jab and he comes forward on it, throws a very heavy left hand, and his head is to the outside and he can disengage easily. This means that it's very difficult for them to hit him when they get into punching exchanges, because of that ebb and flow that he creates, where he anticipates the counter strike and builds in an exit strategy. Exit strategies are a hugely important aspect to this game, and to really all games, and it's something people don't often spend enough time on, and this is something that he has very clear-cut exit strategies. One of them is the pull. The second one is if he gets stuck in front of him, we'll talk about this in a second, using a tie clinch. Anytime that he's getting overwhelmed or he stays too close, that he feels like he needs something to tie it up, he'll use that, which is also going to play into an important part of his game. We'll talk about more on that later. And then the third one is he'll blitz on him, bah, bah, and just drive them back if they start running away. So if he comes in here and they start running away, he'll use this and chase him down with the blitz. The blitz is another important part of his game we'll talk about momentarily. So the exit strategy aspect of his game, no matter where they go, he has a strategy built in, whether it's retreating back, getting off at an angle, which sometimes he'll do. He'll come in here, throw like a leg kick, and then get off at an angle. Or if he gets stuck in here, get into his tie clinch, or if they run away, blitzing on him. So all of his attacks, he keeps very safe on. Now, let's talk about the body kick. Obviously, a very important part of his game that he's well known for is landing this body kick right here. A couple of reasons it lands so successfully. One is that I really like how he leads with the hip a lot. It's not like the classic like knee up extension version. All of his kicks lead with the hip and come up at a 45-degree angle, and he whips it up. What's important, though, is that he makes them forget about the body kick. He comes in here, he attacks the jab, and he gets out. He attacks the jab, and he gets out. He attacks the jab cross, and then he feints the jab, and he whips that kick, and he whips it hard. And this does a lot of damage. He starts hitting ribs, liver, all that stuff, taking away their wind, taking away their stamina, and hurting them, making them afraid of this kick. This is what he wants. He wants them to be afraid of the striking so that they become more welcoming to his ground attacks. And they start encouraging ground. That's where he's really shining. So, from the outside once again, jab and pull. Jab to the cross. Jab feint, hard body kick. Jab cross, leg kick, and jump off. Now we talked about the exit strategies. Let's talk about clinching for a little bit because this is an important part of his game. The tie clinch in particular is something he gets a lot of use out of. And there's a couple different ways that he sets it up. One is that from the outside, like we talked about, he uses it as an exit strategy, particularly with the roundhouse kick. I talked about this before that if you want to keep the outside range, lateral kicks are the way to go. Roundhouse kicks put your opponent right in front of you. He knows this and he wants it, so it's okay. So when he does this, if they happen to move back, no worries. But a lot of times, as he's in here, and he throws the jab, get back, feints, ha! Now with them right in front of him, he drops his head, comes to the plum, tie clinch, gets the head down, starts throwing knees, and starts driving him back. We'll talk about that more later. That is one of the ways he will frequently do it, is here, if they're in front of him, he throws the tie clinch, and that is his entrance, and allows him to set up a lot of things off of it. But it also works well from a countering standpoint, where if they start to pressure him back, and he's throwing, he's got a couple counters he likes to use. The knee, the leg kick, the counter cross. But one of the things he does when he's overwhelmed, puts his hands up, head down, getting to the tie clinch and starting to back him up. We're going to talk about counters more in like 1 second, but I just want to mention that that is another way that he'll get to it, is as guys start overwhelming him, he starts throwing his hands up, keeping his head down between his biceps, getting to the clinch. The other way that you'll see him get to that tie clinch a lot of times is he'll come in here, throw a knee strike with the intention. That is when he's looking for the tie clinch the most. The other times are kind of like opportunities. Like, if I throw the roundhouse kick and I'm in front of him, I'm going to use this because he's in front of me and I need to have a solution, right? If he backs me up and I feel like I'm in danger, of course I'll take it. But when he does the knee, this is a deliberate attempt to get to this clinch, mostly because he wants to back them up to the cage off of it. So those are kind of his primary attacks, right? So once again, jab and pull. What he does up here is, I guess let's talk about counter since we're kind of on this. The jab and pull creates another effect and another benefit to it. Frequently, he's here and he's out of range, and he does this a couple times. What do you think guys start having to do when they want to get to him? They start overcommitting a little bit. When he creates that and they start to overcommit, their head comes down and it sets them up for that knee strike that he likes to hit so much as they enter in. So he'll come in here and sometimes he'll even do the jab in reverse like a first and third where he'll lower, pull, jab, and get out, right? Sometimes he comes in, they start to drop their head as they come forward to try to cover this distance because they want to land on him because he's getting out of range so easily. Boom! And he uses that, capitalizes on it to land the heavy knee. Other things that he does for counters, attacking the leg is always a really nice strategy. Once again, all of his attacks are rear leg kicks, right? Particularly the body and the leg on occasion. But as they come forward, he'll hit the leg and kick it out from them as they're advancing, making it difficult for them to pressure forward. It is very hard to pressure a guy like this back because he's so good at using this luring as you come in here, using the cross to hit you, using the leg kick, using this knee. If you do happen to overwhelm him with pressure, like I said, tie clinch. But the other thing that he does that I really like is the blitz. I should say I love it and hate it because he's had a lot of success with it, but he's also had some failures off of it. Using the blitz got him caught against Charles Oliveira. It's got him caught in some earlier fights as well. Even when he's been successful with it, he tends to eat heavy shots and just hopes to do more damage than he receives. What you'll generally see out of him is as guys start putting him back, he goes, okay, I've got to change the tables now. I can't let him keep pressuring me back. And maybe the tie clinch didn't feel accessible. So he's going to go, I'm going to turn it up on them. Now we do a pace change. And this is something I'm a big fan of in my sparring. We're sparring at the static range the whole time. Maybe he's starting to pressure me back. Now it's time to make him afraid. And this is the thing that's important for Beneil Dairush anyway, because by creating a fear of the striking game at his opponent, it makes them welcome the takedown that's going to come very soon. And when that takedown comes, they welcome it because he's been doing damage from the outside, catching them hard, catching the body, catching the knees, right? Backing up, throwing it. Like, all this stuff, very damaging. And so when the blitz comes, it's another aspect of increasing the pressure on his opponent to make them welcome the takedown that's going to be coming shortly. And so what you'll generally see him do is jab, cross, jab, uppercut as he starts to drive him back. It's some variation of those two usually. Every once in a while he throws a hook in there, but it's usually jab, cross, jab, uppercut. The upside is that this pace puts pressure on them. It's very damaging. He can land big shots on it. But the problem is that sometimes as he's running forward, his head tends to come up on this, and he gets clipped hard. It's happened to him a bunch of times. Sometimes it's even put him out. So I like that he does the blitz. I think that that's an aspect of his game he could improve on the way that he blitz to keep his head down as he starts to do this rather than keeping his head up, which is what he tends to do. So the blitz is important, but he could modify it to make it better. So this is kind of the lesson that we're going to take from it. So if we're getting backed up, sometimes it is good to go, oh, you know what? You're backing me up. Now I need to come harder at you, right? I can't just continuously be passive and running away. This is my time to turn up. But I got to do it in the right way where I keep my head protected. So bam, 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 right? Throw hard at him, but then do it in the right way. Okay. So that's going to do it for the striking. When we come back, we're going to talk about his clinches and wrestling. All right, let's start talking about clinches and takedowns. We've already talked about how much he likes to access the tie clinch, whether it's because he throws a kick and he ends up here in front of him doing exit strategy, they're putting pressure on him, he drops his head down and gets into it, or sometimes it's deliberate. He throws this knee in here to get to the plum clinch here. His goal from here, once he starts getting there, he's going to start backing him up and threatening knees. The reason is he wants to keep them distracted and get them concerned about striking and have him start reaching up to break off his grip so that he can come underneath to his double unders. Everywhere up top, when he starts talking about attacking takedowns, his goal is consistently get to double unders. When he backs guys to the cage, this is what he's looking for. When he does his takedowns, this is what he's looking for. The tie clinch is just one avenue to get there. It's very similar to we talked about with Islam Makhachev when he does the over-under, how he starts getting in here, throws the knee strikes, and as they start reaching across, he blocks the side, tilts him, his aguruma, right? He starts tripping him that way. Beneil Dairush is doing something very similar. Creates a striking threat to access what he really wants. Backs them up, throwing the knee strikes. They're defending the knee strikes, and then they start reaching up to defend, like strip off these arms as he's backing them up to the cage behind the black line. He reaches underneath, pummels in, gets to the double unders. Great position, able to really control them and pin them up at the cage. And now he's got a great ability to do a lot of takedown stuff from here. When he's doing his takedowns, it's very much the same thing. He's going to create a threat of striking to make them forget about the threat of the takedown. Usually he does this, he starts to back them up with, good, right? Really backing them up, making them concerned about it. And then he's going to feint the jab, shoot into his single leg. As he shoots the single leg, his goal is to back them up to the cage and then come up to, once again, his double unders. Another way you'll see him do this sometimes is, this is why I talked about how much I like and don't like the way that he blitzes. The goal of the blitzing, it serves its purpose, but he does it in a kind of a dangerous way that I think if he just kept his head down a little bit more, he'd probably be okay. Just throwing this kind of stuff, he'd probably be more successful. This kind of stuff where he can keep his head a little bit more protected. I like blitzing. I just don't like how he keeps his head up so much when he does it. Right. But the nice thing about the blitz, it creates a pressure. He wants them pressured for striking so that they're so concerned about the striking threat that now they forget about the takedown. So when he blitzes, he disengages. They go, oh, a moment reprieve. He throws the jab. They go, oh, no. And then he shoots underneath and backs them up. He makes them forget about the single leg, right? And so he starts to back them up, puts them under pressure. And then when they're so busy thinking about this striking high, he comes underneath, gets to a single leg, and his goal is just to back them up. And now what do you know? Underhooks are right here. If they start to sprawl on him, no problem. He goes, oh, comes up with the double unders, right? This is what he wanted in the first place, using that to back them up. Now, in the off chance he feels like he can't back them up all the way, he'll start using this and start getting trips instead. So he'll get to the single leg and start tripping out the back foot and doing that kind of stuff. Also, what you'll see him do a lot is turning the corner whenever he does singles and doubles, both in the center of the ring and against the cage. You'll see him start to turn the corner here. And as he starts to come through, whether he's knee picking or he's just bringing them over, whatever it is, he's going to start to bring them down. And as he starts to tilt them, he's starting to come over on top on the back here. So he pins their legs to the ground, pins their hips, and starts creating a turnaway so that he can jump on back. He's always looking for the back in the same way that he's always looking for double underhooks. So let's talk a little bit what he's going to do against the cage that's going to make him so successful. Okay, so for this next part, I got my buddy Donald here. We're going to show what Dairush does against the wall. Now, we talked about how he'll either use a single leg here and use this to back them to the wall and get to his underhooks here, or he'll start from a tie clinch and be throwing these in here, and as they start to come into defense, he swims underneath and gets to his double underhooks here because he wants to get this body clinch. From right here, this is in a position he can start hitting Kosotogari. He can start coming on the inside, Atsugari, right? All this stuff becomes readily available for him. He can start coming through this way, dumping him there. In the event he can't get to that second underhook though, the first one is always the easiest one to get to, but in the event he can't get to it and he's fighting with the hand here, instead what he's gonna do is block this here, drop down, and start getting a single leg to dump him here. Sometimes what he'll do though, is as he gets to this spot, he starts to turn him, he'll dump and he'll come out the back, and immediately he's looking to jump on the backpack and hit his rear naked choke. I'm not gonna do that to Donald. I'll wait a little bit more, I'm not gonna be that mean. But essentially, once again, it's here, backing him up, starting to think about getting his trips and stuff like that. If he can't feel like he can get the underhook as he's fighting in here, he comes down and he starts blocking this hip, or he pops out the back and starts going right to the rear naked choke. Sometimes, if he feels like he's losing his position or he's coming back up and maybe he's lost both of them, he's gonna go back to the tie clinch, start hitting his knees again, and either disengage or use this to once again reestablish his underhooks. Okay, so defensively, what you're gonna see him do a lot of times is as the guy comes in here, if he's losing position, he's gonna fight to get to his underhook and start to turn him. If he really doesn't feel like he can get any underhooks, he's also gonna go back to his tie clinch here, start getting his springs in here, and start throwing the knees to disengage. But the other thing he'll do is if he really feels like he's losing it, if this guy's getting a strong position, he will start getting to his underhook here, or his overhook, get the wizard, and start looking to get to a strong Uchimata to put him on the ground and get into a top position. All right, so let's talk about the ground here a little bit. I want to talk about closed guard first and his standing entries, because a lot of times what you'll see is he'll take people down, and if he ends up in front of them, he will kind of stand up a little bit on them and start to, think about controlling the feet and coming down with punching so that he ends up inside of the closed guard. You'll see that. Sometimes if he ends up on top of like a butterfly hook, this is also very common where he'll kind of end up on top of a foot, in which case he does a very body lock style passing where he brings the knee over and starts coming in this way. It's very common for him if that happens. But most of the time in closed guard, he's got a very specific pathway that he likes to go towards. What he'll generally do, keep his head low and he's going to start to get hands on the inside and a collar tie. And what he likes to do a lot is put his head on the inside because he likes to, one, frame them out and open up the body so he can throw shots. Or he'll start to come in here, keep his head low, and start throwing shots at the body here, right? What he's really trying to get them to do is just open their feet long enough so he can step over. Half guard is where he loves to be. And so from close guard, his goal is basically just to keep enough pressure on them to open the feet. It's really all it is. It's his way of breaking the guard. So he'll generally either keep a collar tie in here and he'll start throwing stuff in here, keeping his head down so that he doesn't eat any damage, throwing body shots, throwing head shots, and then he'll start throwing stuff in here just long enough so this foot opens up and he's ready to come on top of it. Now from half guard is where he's really going to go to work. Half guard is always like the segue he likes to prefer to go to. What you'll see a lot of times from him in a lot of his top positions is to put his head underneath like he's going for a head and arm choke. I don't know if I've ever actually seen him do a head and arm choke in MMA. I'm sure he's capable of it, but that's not really his objective. What his objective is a couple different things. And this is really interesting about his game. He puts his head in here because, one, look how raising this arm up and keeping this head down here creates an opening where I can throw body shots without them being able to do anything about it. He's not getting a ton of power out of it, but he is landing consistently and cleanly, and that only helps him when it comes to judges and stuff like that, right? But also, more importantly, he's creating dilemmas. He makes them afraid of the head coming underneath. He makes them concerned about the body so that he can lift his hips and clear a knee. He's just making them forget about the pass. So as he's in here, he keeps having pressure, throws shots, makes them concerned that he's going to go for a head and arm choke, and then he starts using this to tripod up and get a knee. Either slip to a mount or slip to the inside here. Mostly, he seems to prefer to go to the mount from here. But you'll see him do that, or you'll see him, as he starts to come in here, threatening on the inside, punching, and he'll use his back foot to pin this down so that as he lifts up, he just clears the foot, right? He's giving them three things to think about, and they can't deal with all three. He creates a trilemma. Threatening the head and arm choke, attacking the body, clearing the knee to get to a mount. That's his consistent pass, right? Consistently over and over again. From the mount, you'll see him slide up heavy. Sometimes you'll see him do some more of this here where he's starting in the head and arm choke so he can land. But once again, his goal is not to do a lot of damage from here. His goal is really to start to try to get to a turn away. Force them to expose their back so that he can attack, getting his body triangles, right? And getting to a rear naked choke. That's really what he's looking for out of this. So from the moment he gets on the ground, what he's thinking about is the back, right? If on some fluke chance this guy turns away here, of course he's going to go straight to the back. But that never happens, right? So what does he do? He stays in tight, throws his shots, waits till he can clear a knee, and then he gets over. Comes in here, strong cross fist, open up the arm, punching the body, tripod up, clear the foot, get to a mount. Now he starts coming up here. He might even keep his head down here to threaten this. Coming up high. They know as soon as he's in a mount, if he postures up, they're in trouble. So what do? They start turning away to get to their base. He comes over here. Rear naked choke. This is his go-to. And he does it once again, over and over and over and over again. Now, on the bottom, he does some interesting stuff. He, generally speaking, will start off in like a butterfly. He doesn't end up on the bottom a lot. So, like, there's not a ton of stuff to base this off of. Like, you have a couple fights, you can kind of see what he does. Mateusz Gamrot, you see more of this than probably any other fight. He'll start to throw butterfly hooks and start to create space. What's interesting from here is he turns away to give up his back, and he does it deliberately. I'm not going to probably be able to show this on the bob, but I might try to in a second. As he turns away, he creates space because he knows what are they obviously going to do. They're going to jump on his back. They can't help it. If I'm in butterfly and this guy turns away from me, of course I'm going to jump on his back. But now he's got a second to respond, anticipate, and be proactive from here. So as he goes from butterfly, he turns away, knowing they're going to jump. And as soon as he starts to turn away, what does he do? He puts his shoulder to the mat so he can come through and attack the legs. He has time to respond and lure them into his leg attacks. That's what he did to Tony Ferguson. So when he gets to here, as he starts to turn away, right, of course, this guy's going to jump on my back. I'm going to try to show it here as best as possible. But I've already gotten to my shoulder so that I'm already halfway into the turn by the time I come across. Now I end up in a leg entanglement, and I can start attacking. A lot of times, depending on what they do, he might end up in a honey hole, he might end up in a 50-50. Whatever he can get, he gets. With Tony Ferguson, he had him in a very, very nasty heel hook. Popped it, Ferguson didn't want to tap. No problem. But here's the thing. Let's say he gets nothing off of this. Worst case situation, he's not on bottom anymore. Beneil Dairush is very hard to put in a bottom position and keep there. Why? Because what does he do? He starts here in butterfly, frames and turns away, already thinking about going to his shoulder so that as soon as you jump on the back, he's already rolling through to get to a knee. If he doesn't get the leg lock, he gets to stand back up. He gets to make you afraid of being on top of him. That is the beauty of this system. He consistently can go to creating a threat. And how does he do it? He lures you into a trap, right? Anybody who does any jiu-jitsu whatsoever knows that if I'm in butterfly and I turn away, I'm inviting you to jump on my back, right? Nobody who does jiu-jitsu is going to let that moment pass. Why would you, right? So he knows this, and as soon as he comes up here, now he creates space as they start to escape the leg lock, and he gets back to his feet, and now he gets to be in control again. And that's the beauty of Beneil Dairush. Everything is about putting the fight on his terms.